All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming back. If you were here yesterday, thanks for coming back for another day. For those who've just walked in and this is your first experience of the festival for a well-nourished Victoria, welcome. We're so excited for you to join us for the day. My name is Mehek Sheikh. I am your co-MC and was here yesterday with most of you, and I'm joined by Danny.
Hello, I'm Danny Vallant. Great to see you again if you were here yesterday, and lovely to meet you if you've just joined us today. I'm a Melbourne-based food journalist, freelance food writer, podcaster, and it's really fun to be co-MCing with Mehek.
It's very cool to just be in this space with all of this celebrity, as someone who's much newer to the food space. So thanks for welcoming me into it as well. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge country. To do that, I might actually take you through a bit of an embodied experience. So I'm going to ask you to make sure your feet are touching the ground, sitting up sort of straight. And I want us to, for those who were yesterday with us, maybe just imagine where we were standing yesterday. So you're welcome to leave your eyes open or closed. Imagine, you can feel the grass under your feet where we were standing in the Rosina Gardens yesterday, where we were very beautifully welcomed by Thane. And in doing so, I would love to bring us into where we are today on Wurundjeri country. I'd like to acknowledge elders past and present as traditional custodians of Wurundjeri country. I'd like to acknowledge emerging leaders. I'd like to acknowledge any First Nations people who are joining us today and acknowledge that this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. I'll bring you back into the room. Thank you for going through that experience with me. Yesterday, we felt, before I began actually, yesterday, I spoke about 3 key values, if you remember. It was connection to land, connection to country, community, and collaboration. It was so beautiful yesterday, Danny, to see how much of that community came out when we went through the 4 activities. There was so much of conversation and connection and people learning about each other's stories. I was in the memorable menu experience, which was, writing about memorable foods from milestones, from your childhood, from different experiences in your life, and all the beautiful stories that were coming out of there really exemplified the values. So thank you for participating in that and bringing those values to life in how you came into the space. Today is more of that, more of those values, and maybe more of the collaboration as well, more of finding ways in which we can stay connected and do this incredible work together. So just to give you a quick overview of what you can expect, Danny alluded to this yesterday evening as well during the networking or just before the networking. We'll have some panels, we'll have some small group discussions, we'll have some food, which is excellently being brought to us by Mabu Mabu, so I hope you're ready for that. And if you haven't yet got your coffee, I think that van is still there for the next little bit, so make sure you try and grab that. That's sort of today. Did anyone have one, you're going to shout it out, because I love doing this, I did it yesterday as well, off script, one word of how yesterday felt so that the people who are not here with us could maybe experience it through your words. Just shout it out, one word. Energizing, thank you. What else? Safe. Thank you. Enlightening. Excellent. Inspiring. Summer camp. That is 2 words, but I will. Summer camp. So for those who are not here, make sure you try and find someone who was so they can share that experience with you and these words become more of a story and through it. Yes. Holistic. Thank you. And that's sort of it for the recap from yesterday, because I really want you to find someone who was there rather than me telling you from where I was, and use that as an opportunity to build those relationships. Danny, over to you.
Thanks so much, Mehek, and thank you for those excellent words and the general good feeling that is here in this room. I said it yesterday standing on the lawn that you just can tell when it's going to be a good day, when you have good people gathering with good intentions, working on good things already and ready to share with those that they're encountering today. So yeah, it's with a great spirit of excitement that we kick things off this morning. Just a couple of little housekeeping things. Today, you'll need to be wearing your Day 2 lanyard because it's got your breakout group on it. So if you don't have that, just ask Vic Health staff that have got the red lanyards and they can sort you out. There's all gender ability toilets just around there. So yeah, if you need the facilities, that's where they are. So I'm going to introduce a couple of keynotes now. Professor Corinna Hawkes is an internationally renowned specialist in food systems and has specific expertise in the links between agriculture, food, diet and health. Corinna was Director of the Centre for Food Policy at City University of London, Chair of the Board of Bite Back 2030 Collective. She was meant to be here, but she has a pretty good excuse for not. She's starting as the Director at the Food and Agriculture Organisation and is currently relocating to Rome. I mean, when you got to do it, you got to do it, right? So she's provided us with a short video, and that is then going to lead into an in-person presentation by Professor Xu Wen. So I'll introduce Xu Wen and the video will lead straight off into her presentation. Corinna and Xu Wen are co-founders of the Next Generation Leadership Collective. Xu Wen is a health economist interested in identifying and enabling effective and equitable incentives to discourage unhealthy and encourage healthy dietary choices to help improve population and planetary health and well-being, particularly among the vulnerable. I had a brief chance to chat to Xu Wen yesterday about her work and yeah, it's amazing. So I'm really excited to hear her speak to it. Let's roll the video.
Good day to everyone. I'm sorry I can't be with you in person, but I wanted to spend just a very few minutes sharing with you my reflections about why reflecting on the nature of leadership is so critically important if we're going to make change in food systems. I've been working in the field of food systems change for over 20 years. And in that time, I've made many observations about the nature of leadership, about how those who are seen as true leaders are those who are seen to be decisive, who take a very clear position on an issue, who stand up and shake their fists or use their pens to make powerful statements. And these are indeed leaders. And we need those kinds of leaders. But I also observed that this approach didn't necessarily lead to the most impactful change possible. That it often created polarized circumstances, when in fact, really, when trying to make change, the world is really not black and white, but different shades of grey. Now that's not to say there are not things that are black and white. Climate change, the reality of inequality and inequity, the prevalence of ill health. These things are very, very clear. They do not have to be disputed, though there are those that do dispute them. But those things, to me at least, are very, very clear. You can say that they exist and they are a problem and that they are wrong. But it is in the process of making change where the greyness emerges. We can stand up and name the problem and be very clear on that, but once it comes to identifying the solutions, understanding why people think differently, understanding why perspectives are different, listening with curiosity, and deeply reflecting about the role that we may have played in causing a situation, even if not intended, are important in order to overcome what can be a very toxic environment of difference. And having seen that, I also observed that there was so much leadership, particularly among women, that was lying latent, but that couldn't be unleashed because it took this different form. And that's why I worked with my friend Shu Wen to set up Next Generation Leadership Collective. But this isn't just about women and the fact that the leadership that they show is often undervalued. It's about, and this is in my experience, that I feel that too many people feel that they have to take on, men and women, all genders, feel they have to take on these macho leadership characteristics in order to get ahead. I would say that many men are in very difficult situations of, if they don't behave in certain ways, that they too are held back. So this is about changing leadership amongst everybody and recognizing that unless we change the way that leadership practices, the way that leadership is practiced in our everyday decision making, in our everyday spaces, even though no one else may ever see that, we won't really gain change in food systems. And that those apparently small decisions in small spaces are what adds up to real leadership. I and many of my colleagues are absolutely dedicated to making change in nutrition and food systems. To do so, we need to have a different type of leadership. That's something that I believe in passionately. And it's one thing that we can all try and make change to do. Now, these are structural issues. As I indicated earlier, the reason why people lead in the way that they do is because that has been socialized, that has been created as a norm. It's a systemic issue. But in the world when so much can seem so hopeless and difficult, trying to reflect on our own leadership practices and to connect for collective action with others in their leadership is something that we can start to do in our everyday lives, in our everyday spaces. I wish you very the best for this summit, and thank you for engaging on these important issues.
What pearls of wisdom from Corinna. Indeed, small changes are what we choose to do and how we do it are what add up to real leadership. Each of us who care deeply about the environment and want to minimize human suffering may not be able to solve these large systemic issues and problems on our own. But it is by centering the social purpose that drive us to consider how we can refuse to be complicit in contributing to these problems and drive us to consider and take action to start addressing them. Actions like working with youth and children to learn about native plants, or engaging with policymakers to design innovative programs or policies to better inform the public about their food and nutrition, are all forms of resistance. And there are types of changes involved that involve working with others that add up to something larger. These actions emphasize relationships with our earth, with each other, and with our own selves in joyful and creative ways. These actions bring healing and a reclaiming of agency. I can tell you that my own journey to reclaim my agency was one that was pretty karmic. Up to about 3 years ago, I didn't see myself as a leader. And there's still the occasional days and moments when I wonder about this. Reflecting on why I didn't think of myself as a leader earlier on, I realized it was because I had a mistaken view of what it meant to be a leader. I had thought of it narrowly as meaning someone in a position of power, who commands authority, who's up top, and the visible person, the person who has the title. I've since learned that I needed to reframe my understanding of what it means to be a leader. And honestly, it came out of two events. The first was the COVID pandemic. When it became clear in March of 2020 that we were in a brave new world, I was working from home and saw the need for so many assistance and support programs to be adapted for our new reality. The public health and public policy community really stepped up and came together to add all these flexibilities and design new programs and increase benefits to help and support the most vulnerable among us. I was trying to do my part by providing evidence from earlier work that I had done with an NGO to advocate for state funds for expanding a fruit and vegetable benefit program. This program ended up reaching over 40,000 low-income North Carolinians. There was so much to be done, and it was a time of great uncertainty. Yet it was also when I saw some of the finest examples of people working together, coming together, working outside of their silos, sharing resources and knowledge, no longer caring about whether they themselves got credit. The need and cause was way larger than their egos. It was humbling and inspiring, and it was also quite exhausting. I'm sure you can all relate to that. And we're now at a time when many may be calling this the post-COVID period or phase. Some of the spirit has stayed on, and I hope it will continue to. The second event was conversations I had with Corinna and other women who stepped up to engage in conversations together about how to reimagine our food systems to be fairer, kinder, and more just. We realized from our conversations over Zoom and across several time zones that the role of leadership was key. Women who joined in the discussions via online forums we held in 2021 and 2022 shared stories about how they were bravely challenging the existing paradigms, sometimes overtly, and sometimes in more subversive ways. Because that was the best way to affect change towards a larger social purpose. We shared stories about how we learned from reflecting by having postmortem discussions in groups, self-correcting, reading the room, listening and asking questions to understand nuance, and adapting for different contexts. We discuss how, by saying no, we create room for others to step up, while also ensuring that we can spend our time on things that matter most to us. For me personally, it was an important journey about learning how to better listen and better develop my question-asking skills. From these two events, I've come to realize that leadership is about inspiring confidence and a sense of attention and intention among a group, not oriented towards a person, but oriented towards the purpose and the potential of that purpose. There is an element of risk-taking and uncertainty. Courageous leaders acknowledge the uncertainty and are willing to sit with the discomfort of that uncertainty and will reach out to others to figure out how to mitigate those risks. A big part of the discomfort is one from fear, which is real and always present. But what is also present is a willingness to face the fear. What develops this willingness? I think it is a knowing that others will have my back that I have allies, and a confidence that the purpose is a good and worthy one. This begs the question, how can we feel confident that the why is good and worthy? I read a piece in the New York Times recently from an interview with the author and scientist Robin Wall-Kimmerer, who is a member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation and a professor at the State University of New York. She talks about how our failure to act to address the most pressing issues of our times are because we haven't incorporated values and knowledge together. Professor Kimmerer also notes that whenever we form relationships and reclaim agency by courageously and joyfully connecting values and knowledge, we are leaders. When I read this, I thought about the process of working on the Manifesto for Leadership with the group of women involved in the discussions I mentioned earlier. That was exactly what happened, whether we intended it to or not. We discussed our values and hopes, and then we integrated the stories we heard with additional systematic evidence from real-world experiences we found in the literature. In reviewing drafts, we had some disagreements on nuances that led us to further discussions about our values, what were common and what were not, and how we were going to handle those. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. And ultimately, the manifesto connected our shared values and knowledge. Whenever I read the manifesto again, I'm reminded about the importance of these 8 leadership practices to affect change. It is a bit meta about the creation of the manifesto itself, requiring the application of the leadership practices, and served as a critical way for the people involved to deepen our relationships and to see ourselves as leaders. I also thought about the times when I experienced a disconnect between my values and knowledge, and thus did not identify as a leader within that space. It's interesting that what we often consider to be our strengths are also often our weaknesses or blind spots. In my case, I'm a very action-oriented and problem-solving-oriented person, which sounds great, but actually comes at the risk of plowing ahead on things without enough pause and thoughtfully asking the right questions along the way. As I noted earlier, I'm working on this, but no doubt it would take some unlearning of bad habits and some continued mistakes. I have been lucky to have lots of other great leaders around me who are role models and aspects like this, and I would like to think that I can serve as a role model for others who are struggling with other aspects. We all have our strengths and areas of growth, and we can support each other on. In closing, I want to acknowledge the first peoples and traditional owners and custodians of the land and waterways on which we are gathering today. I also want to thank Vic Health for inviting me to this summit. The first day was, I think, a really fun and innovative way to get us connected. And today, you'll have the opportunity to delve into these leadership practices I've been referring to through the workshops and the breakout sessions. I hope that the time together today will continue for us to spark new ways to connect our values and knowledge and to form new relationships with ourselves, with each other, and with our lands and waterways. And for you to celebrate yourselves and others as leaders oriented towards actions for well-nourished Victoria. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shuwen. Shuwen will be on a panel later on, so if you've got questions or want to find out more, definitely note them down, and you'll have a chance to ask then. All right, next we're transitioning into a slightly different headspace for the next little while, talking a little bit about ourselves, but not in the kind of like pretentious way like I do up here, talking about myself in front of crowds. Not like that. A bit deeper, a bit more of a journey, introspectively, and sharing with those in the room. So, for the next activity, we'll be led by Mahana Culture. Has anyone heard of Mahana Culture before? Great, just a few, just one. It's great. They're an incredible organization that I've had the pleasure of being involved in the sense, like, I've attended their stuff, so I can definitely vouch for the experience they create. It is beautiful. It's so introspective. It really takes you to another place. So Mahana Culture was established in 2016 by Tavale, who is their creative director, and you'll get to meet them today, alongside a dedicated team of professionals from education, youth work, psychology, research, and organizational culture backgrounds. Mahana is committed to awakening cultural dignity and creating culturally safe workspaces and institutional cultures. They center a lot of their practice on the va, which is a Polynesian term for the space between us, and prioritizes the importance of developing relationships and designing learning that embraces culture, connectedness, and broader ecosystems of individuals. So not too far, actually, from what we've just heard is important. Those relationships, that narrative, that storytelling, and they will take us through how that will occur in the sessions.